College football, week 7. We've got 14 games to talk to you about tonight. It is 11:34 p.m. on Thursday night. We've already had one game that we locked in on Tuesday, and that was a winner. We'll talk about it in a second. But we've got 13 other games to talk about tonight. One for Friday, so one for tomorrow, the day that you should be listening to this. And that would leave 12 games for Saturday that we have to go over. This is week 7, Saturday snap count. Let's go. As you heard in that intro, yes, it is 11:35 p.m. I think I went the latest that I've gone so far on Tuesday, and I have just absolutely shattered through the glass ceiling for Tuesday now on Thursday night. And you may be wondering, why in the world are you recording at 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday night? You got to go to work in the morning. I know. I believe me. But there's more important things right now, and that is Jackson Dart absolutely cutting the Eagles to pieces on Thursday Night Football. Prime time, him and Cam Scatabo. Water break. If you just hear random pauses on podcasts you're not actually able to watch, it's just a water break. Jackson Dart and Cam Scatabo absolutely tore up the Eagles. Huge pick late in the game for Jalen Hurts. Totally flipped momentum. I think, the Eagles were driving there at the end. They were down 2 scores, but I think, any Giants fan with, 2 cents of I don't even know, 2 cents in their brain knows that the Giants could have very easily found a way to lose that game. So we weren't really comfortable. But the pick happens, man, and everything from there was downhill for the Eagles. Nothing feels better than to beat them, especially when they're 4-1. The Giants are needing a win to get it back on track after losing to the Saints last week. And, man, that was awesome. That was so awesome. Jackson Dart is him. Cam Scatabo is him. And that's NFL talk. Enough of that. I also was watching our first game of the week that we went ahead and locked in on Tuesday because it was on Thursday night, and that was East Carolina at Tulane. We had locked in Tulane minus 6.5, and we had tons of research on that game. I will show you. This is actually just one page. Each line horizontally was research and numbers on each game, but I had lots on it. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it, if I was going to go through it or not, but I just decided we're just going to skip it, and you can go back and listen on Tuesday and listen to me say we're locking in Tulane minus 6.5. I ain't gonna lie, it came down to the last drive of the game, but it doesn't matter. A win is a win. And let me take this chance as well to throw out the disclaimer that we do every episode, and that is that we do not promote gambling. We do not condone gambling. We don't partner with any sports books. We're making picks against the spread, and maybe every now and then you might get an over and under simply because we're just trying to set ourselves apart. So don't take my picks and try to gamble with them, because then you're going to get mad at me, and I don't want you to get mad at me. Just take them for the information. Enjoy knowing more about the game than you already knew. Enjoy having a rooting interest in the game with information you didn't have before. This is a huge hobby of mine. I love to really dive into these games. And if I was just picking winners and losers, man, you guys wouldn't listen. To be honest, there's not a lot of listeners anyway. Sometimes it feels like I'm talking into the void. But if I was picking winners and losers straight up, it'd be even worse. I feel like I gained some edge on some other people out there by picking spreads, so I pick spreads. And yes, that is a gambling activity to pick a spread, but I am not condoning you to do that, nor am I in that world or in that industry. I'm not involved at all with sports books. So this is just for fun. This is a hobby. But it still feels good to win. It still feels good to win. I've got to improve the eye contact. The new microphone setup is really throwing me off, dude. I'm not going to lie. If I put my hand and cover the microphone with my face, you're going to see what I see. That's what I'm looking at. Where my hand is right now, is where the microphone is. You see how, like, the microphone cuts off half of my screen. But to you guys, it looks like it's in a perfectly normal spot right in front of my face. So that's why it's there, because it looks good and it catches the best audio there. But it annoys the crap out of me, and I got to get used to it. So all I do is just look at my face the entire time, because I don't want to be like this. For the YouTube people, you can see. For the podcast people, I'm hiding behind the mic. I don't want to be like that. So I look at my face the entire time because I got to make sure I'm in the right spot. And I've got to not do that. I've got to trust that I'm in the right spot and look at you right in the face, which is what I'm doing right now. Anyway, man, I'm fired up. I'm on another level right now, dude. 1-0 to start the week on Thursday. Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, cut the Eagles up. Come on, man. Whew. I'm telling you there's a water break now. I'm not going to let you hear. I'm just going to tell you, water break. Let's talk about Friday. Friday. We got one game on Friday. You know why we call it Friday? Because you be screaming yay all day. Because it's Friday. All right, it's the end of the week. You deserved it. You earned it. And that's where we're going to be by the time you're listening to this, hopefully. So let's talk about the one game we have on Friday. Paper popping my notes. We've got South Florida at North Texas. North Texas is favored. That's right. Favored. -1.5 against South Florida. I'm going to start this game off like I start every game off. The simple rating system, of course. You all know it. Simple rating system has a 1-point edge to South Florida. They're at a 10. They're beating average teams on neutral sites by 10. North Texas is at a 9. Scott, why are they favored then? Well, as I've said before, you're usually going to get about a 3-point edge at home, unless you're a terrible, terrible team. North Texas is not a terrible team. Excuse me. They're actually undefeated. Here's the problem, though. North Texas's strength of schedule is -5. They've played absolutely nobody. They're Penn State 2.0. They've played absolutely nobody. And so the stats look really good. The record looks really good. And if you didn't know anything about North Texas, you'd say, boy, you better watch out. They're coming for that G5 spot. But I'm going to offer a little reassurance right now in that who's talked about North Texas? Anybody? Anybody out there that makes lots of money doing what I'm doing right now talked about North Texas? No. They've talked about Memphis. They've talked about USF. They've talked about Tulane. No mentions of North Texas. But they're 5-0, remember? They're scoring 45 points a game. Top of the conference. But we're smarter than that. We're going to look into it. One thing that I will say, I brought this up a couple weeks ago, that I had a lot of red flags on games. I can't remember if this was last weekend. No, this was 2 weeks ago when we were terrible. We were like 3-6. And it was that all the games that I was picking were favored at like 105 odds, -105, which, as we know from doing this long enough, and if you know anything about it, that's not favorable odds necessarily. Even though they are a favorite by the number, 105 is super, super close to 50-50. And typical favorite odds would be around 115. And North Texas, although they are favored -1.5, it is -105. So go ahead and wave the red flag. USF at +1.5 is -115. So then you ask yourself, who's really favored in this game? Well, obviously it's North Texas by the number, but I think there's a little bit more to it. Both of these teams are 4-1 against the spread. As we said, there's a 1-point difference in the simple rating system. USF's strength of schedule is right at 0, so they're scheduling right at average, which is crazy because they've played Miami and they've played Florida and Boise State. But I think Boise State and Florida is kind of what brings that number down a little bit. But in reference to what North Texas has played, I don't even have their opponents listed written down because they're so irrelevant. I mean, so you got to look at it that way. This is North Texas's first real challenge. This is their first real opponent that they're going to play, and it's a darn good one. I think USF until Memphis was undefeated, beating Arkansas, and they're just like crushing everybody. It actually got on everybody's radar. Before that happened, USF was everybody's pick for the playoff. So let's not forget that, because nothing's changed there. The only thing that's changed is another team winning games, being Memphis. But if you take Memphis out of the equation, because they have to play USF and Tulane, then USF is probably the favorite at this point. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. North Texas is coming off of a bye. Why is that important for South Florida? Well, because typically you like to ramp up when you play big teams and in conference games and you're at home. So here's what I don't like about it. What I don't like about it is coming off of a bye. Like I said, you tend to prefer a ramp up game. And what I mean by that is, think of it this way. North Texas has spent the last 2 weeks at home, not playing against anybody but the Mean Green. Sorry, not the Mean Green. That's Marshall. But they've played nobody but themselves for the last 2 weeks. And the issue you have with that is when you throw teams like that in off of a bye week into a big game, those teams usually fall a little short. And why is that? Well, it's because, number one, they've sat at home for 2 weeks, but number two, South Florida's tested. They're a good team. They're a good opponent. It's not going to be easy no matter what. And North Texas being in scrimmages and in practices, well, here's how this goes. And this is my own personal experience being a college athlete. I played baseball in college. And when you're playing your own team, what happens when you have a quarterback go out there in a scrimmage and he does bad for one drive, like no completions, just kind of throwing the ball all over the place? What happens? Hey, get out of there. Get the next guy in. You gonna do that in the game? I don't think so. A couple things go bad in practice. Hey, take a seat, man. Just take a seat for a second. A couple plays go by. All right, now get back in there. You going to do that in the game against USF? No, you got to ride with that guy because their starting quarterback's good. He's got stupid numbers. He's got video game numbers. But there's no saving him, and there's no ramp up. You go from playing your own team for 2 straight weeks, plus probably some extra off days, and yeah, you may be rested, but you're rusty. And you got to go up against a really scary defense in USF. So that's why I don't like that North Texas is coming off of a bye. USF has played the number 1 team in the country, 2 Power 4 teams, and a team that made the playoff last year in Boise State. North Texas can't say that. North Texas's best win is Washington State. Washington State's 3-2. They're a 32-point dog to Ole Miss this weekend. So I don't know exactly where Washington State compares to South Florida, but it's not very close. And so for North Texas to go into this game, obviously they're confident. Obviously they believe that they're going to win the game, but how confident can you really be from an outsider's perspective looking at this, saying their best challenge is Washington State? Now they got to go play USF after sitting at home for 2 weeks? USF is primed and ready to go. I mean, you ride the hot hand. You got momentum. Like, you're winning games. You had one hiccup against the best team in the country. USF's one loss is the best possible loss on any resume in the country against Miami, who's the number 1 team in the country. And it was on the road. And it was after you had a gauntlet playing Boise State and Florida. So that's the way I'm looking at it. They've also played 2 FCS schools. Not one FCS school, 2. So I don't love this game. I don't like that it's a small spread, but it's Friday night, and it's going to be a good game. It's going to be entertaining. It's a Friday night game. Crazy things happen. Last Friday night, Virginia beat Florida State. And so it does scare me that the line is so small, but when I look at it, here's something else that I was thinking about this week as preparing for this game. We're at the point in the year where you start to reach the meat and potatoes of your schedule. And I think what Vegas does oftentimes in these spots, and it's not just with North Texas, there's other games on here. Actually, 2 games from now, what we're going to talk about, we're going to see it again. And it's where they try to throw cookies at these teams that have passed their tests so far. They've won their games when really they know that their challenges are upcoming. So what I mean by that is here's North Texas. You're 5-0. You've put up video game numbers in just about every game. You're going stupid, but you've played nobody. You have a test coming up, and I think truly Vegas believes that they're probably not going to win the game. So what they're doing is they're going to say, here, we're going to give you the favorite. We'll make you the favorite. 1 point, 1.5 points, small. Congratulations for getting this far. Now the real challenge comes. So it's a tip of the cap. It's a cookie. And so I think because of that, that's why the number is so small. It makes me feel a lot better about it, actually, because I don't have any doubt that USF can go in and win this game. We've said it before. If we've said it once, we've said it 100 times. When you pick an underdog against the spread, you got to believe that they can win the game outright. USF can win this game outright 100 different ways. And they haven't played anybody like USF. They haven't seen a quarterback like USF has before. And they're not going to be ready for this challenge. And they're going to lose this game. So I would say let's take USF money line. But if they're going to give us a point, we're going to take the point. If Vegas is going to be silly enough to give us 1 point, we're going to take 1 point. Okay? So let's lock it in. USF plus 1.5 on the road, upsetting North Texas and ruining their undefeated season. Now, moving on. Ohio State at Illinois. Illinois is a 14-point dog. One thing to note, Ohio State is undefeated against the spread. Illinois has lost only one game against the spread. The SRS model on this game has Ohio State at a 19 and Illinois at an 18. And you would say, well, what in the heck are we doing looking at a 14-point spread? I agree. But there's a couple things of note in this game. Illinois does have the edge in strength of schedule. They have a 6 in the strength of schedule. Ohio State's sitting right at 0. So again, those numbers are saying, well, why don't we just pick Illinois and move on? Well, I'm going to tell you why. They're both scoring 37 points per game. Illinois is giving up 24 points per game. I don't know about you. I wouldn't feel really good if I'm giving up 24 points a game and I'm going in with a team that's scoring 37 points a game. That's a recipe for disaster. And on the other end of the ball, Ohio State's only giving up 5 points per game. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're giving up less than a touchdown per game. Their defense is really, really, really good. And Illinois, although they are a good team and have a good offense, I believe they're going to score points, has trouble stopping the other team. You saw the USC game last week where they pulled ahead and it looked like a blowout, and then you look at the final score and it's one possession. They let USC back in that game. It doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. Illinois at plus 14 is minus 105. So again, that red flag that we've seen all too many times before this season. So really what we're looking at is a heavy favorite here. We're looking at a heavy favorite in Ohio State based off of those numbers. Versus Indiana, I know Illinois fans don't want me to talk about the Indiana game. I frankly don't want to talk about the Indiana game either. Against Indiana, Illinois only had, let's count it together, 1, 2. Yeah, that's it. 2 rushing yards. 1, 2. 2 rushing yards against Indiana. Last time I checked, Indiana isn't necessarily known for having a dominant defensive team. So we can't look at that and disregard it. I tried so hard to write my notes and find a way to give myself information on this game that leans me towards Illinois because it's a huge number. It's 14 points on the road. Illinois is not some pushover. They're a good team. Don't just look at the Indiana game. The USC win has value. The Duke win has value. And I like Illinois. I like Brett Bielema. I like the team. I like that they're bringing back 19 starters from last year when they went 10-3. But you can't rush for 2 yards in any game. You can't. Like in college, in the NFL, rushing for close to 100 yards is like quite an accomplishment, especially against some of these defenses. But this isn't the NFL. In college football, you've got to rush for over 100 yards a game. You've got to. You can't rush for 2 yards in one game. Ohio State's middle of the pack in rush defense. They're giving up about 90 yards a game. But again, 90 yards is not all that bad when you're looking at the college football game. It's a game that's dominated by run, especially in the Big Ten. Now, Ohio State and Illinois aren't necessarily those teams that you look at as these like run heavy, slow the clock down type of teams. But giving up 90 yards a game isn't going to kill you against anybody. So that's one thing to look at. Illinois has the sixth most sacks allowed in the country and the second worst sacks allowed number in Power 4. The only other team that's given up more sacks than them in the Power 4 is Auburn. So, again, very, very concerning. Ohio State's averaging 3 sacks per game. And this was something that I thought was pretty interesting. They played Minnesota last week, Ohio State did. And PJ Fleck, who is a good coach, when he had Minnesota really rolling, everybody wanted him. Everybody. And if your team was looking for a coach at that time, don't say that you weren't, because you were. Ultimately, he's still at Minnesota. But he said after playing Ohio State last week, he said something that was pretty interesting. He said, and I quote, "That is the best defense I have seen in years." In years. And so we look at what Matt Patricia has done. And not only did he say it's one of the best defenses he's ever seen in the last several years, but one thing in a more technical standpoint he said was that Matt Patricia throws out such complex defenses that you're getting a different look every single time. So it's like when you're trying to make adjustments versus things, like you see something for a couple plays, it's like, all right, let's adjust to it. Well, now it's different. Now the adjustment we just made is out the window because now they're doing something different. And they've got super skilled players. They're one of the best teams in the country. I hate to admit it. I don't like Ohio State. I don't like when they're good because they're arrogant. But you can't sit there and watch what they've done and look at their team as a whole and say they're not one of the best teams in the country, and they are. Let me throw this out at you, too. Ohio State has 3 transfers in the starting 22 players. 11 on offense, 11 on defense. 3 of them are transfers. The rest of them were out of high school at Ohio State, developed under Ryan Day. Again, I don't like Ryan Day. I hate his personality. I hate the way he approaches winning. But you just can't sit here and say he's not one of the best coaches in the country right now. They're taking the Clemson approach to like get guys out of high school and develop them and let them age, let them get experience, and make them who you want to be, who you want them to be. So they're not taking the transfer portal route necessarily, not right now, and it's working. So they're bringing back a national championship roster back with their starters. They've got all these stupid numbers, and they've played teams like Texas, who I still think is a pretty good team to measure up against at least. And so I find it hard to believe that they don't win this game by 2 possessions. And I feel really sad to say that. I like Illinois a lot. I have an Illinois fan that listens to this show. I'm really sorry. I apologize. And to validate myself, I tried to go out to as many professional predictors as I could, get their opinions, because anytime I feel a little bit of doubt, I try to get some professional opinions because it has to mean something, right? I mean, nobody's perfect out there, and I think some of these people that get paid a lot of money aren't very good at their job, but I tend to listen to the ones that are very good at their job, and it was pretty unanimous that Ohio State's going to find a way to cover in this game. We saw it against Washington. They slowed the game down. Washington held them off a few times. It was a field goal game at first, and then it turned in from a field goal game into like Ohio State's running away with it. And I don't know where we're going to find much difference here in this game. I think the only saving grace that Illinois has is Luke Altmaier and their offense. If their offense can score, then they can keep it close. But again, 14 points is a score, stop, score. It happens all the time in this game. Score, stop, score. Especially with this team, this Ohio State team, they have one of the toughest defenses in the country. So just because I'm tired of losing predictions on trying so hard to root for and predict the team that I want to win, I'm putting that to rest this week, and I'm picking the games, and I'm picking the teams that have proven and shown that they have what it takes, whether I like them or not. I've picked too many games off of who I like and who I don't, and I'm done with that. So Ohio State, minus 14. I'm going to feel really dumb if it doesn't happen. If it does happen, I'm going to be glad I did. Moving on. That's Saturday, by the way. I don't think that needs to go I'm pretty sure that was a soon, but that's Saturday. Saturday morning. The next Saturday morning game, Alabama at Missouri. This one's way down in my paper. I don't have a whole lot of room here. I did not pre-plan where I was going to put my notes. Alabama on the road at Missouri. Missouri is +3. This is a morning game as well. On the On the SRS, I got to put my notes somewhere else. On the SRS, Alabama is a 21, pretty high. Missouri is only a 13. Missouri has a -4 strength of schedule. Alabama has a 10 strength of schedule. So clearing Missouri in those numbers quite confidently. Bama is scoring 36 points a game and allowing 16 points a game. Missouri is scoring 45 points a game and giving up 14 points a game. Not all that impressive when you look at their schedule, because those numbers, at least the points per game and allowed points per game, gives the edge to Missouri. But we're not looking at it that way because we do take into account who you've played. Missouri has the 4th most sacks in the conference, so they are allowing a little bit too much pressure for my liking with this Alabama defense. Eli Drinkowitz is 0-2 versus Bama. He's played Alabama twice. He's lost to him both times. The average points lost by in those 2 games was 26. And the reason that is because, number one, not all that long ago, it was still East and West in the SEC, and those teams were on opposite sides, so they didn't have many opportunities to play each other. Now you get this more open concept where more teams are playing more teams more often. And so I think we're going to see this matchup a little bit more than what we're used to in the past. But one thing that I always said, and this has continued under DeBoer, it was obviously this way with Saban, but it's continued under DeBoer, and there's just something different about Alabama. Now, Alabama isn't as dominant as they were with Nick Saban. Last year was obviously super underachieving, losing 3 games. But they still have this like swagger about them that you still don't like to see them across the field, no matter who you are. Obviously, going into Georgia and snapping a 33-game home win streak for Georgia is super, super impressive. And they had a chance to come down off of that, get another win before kind of moving on to this game. And what I thought about when I was thinking about this game is, what does Missouri have that could potentially beat Alabama? And that is, number one, the best running back in the country, Ahmad Hardy, who is so far and away the best running back by the numbers that it's kind of crazy. And they have a super mobile quarterback in Prebula. So you would think by that, Missouri wants to keep the ball on the ground. They want to move it all over the place. They want to mix it up, and they want to control the game. When's the last time Alabama played a team that wanted to keep it on the ground, mix it up, and control the game? 7 days ago against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt wanted to mix it up, keep the ball on the ground, and control the game. So what was Alabama's strategy for that? Well, it was to do one thing pretty simply, and it was to force them to throw the ball. Because Alabama knows that Vanderbilt couldn't have beat them in the air, especially when you're going up against Alabama's offense, who is doing everything right now. But it was no question. It's how Vanderbilt beat Alabama last year, because you just run the ball with the quarterback and the running back, and then when you're kind of finally committing to the run enough, they just kind of pop that throw on you, and there's not a whole lot you can do. And Vanderbilt went into this game, I think, with a very similar strategy, and Alabama said, you know what? We're going to make you throw it. You're not going to do it to us again. You're not going to run us to death again. You're not going to take your quarterback and mix looks, RPOs, run the ball, nickel and dime, get down the field, make a big play late, whatever. You're going to have to beat us in the air. And it didn't work out for Vanderbilt. It worked out for Alabama. I would be shocked to not see something very, very similar in this game. Make Prebula throw. Keep him controlled on the ground. Keep Ahmad Hardy on the ground. Don't let Ahmad Hardy beat you. That's what I've always heard when I was playing baseball and you were going up against a team that had one really, 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 really good player. It didn't matter if they were the better team, but it was like, don't let that one person beat you. keep the one person in check, and the rest will handle itself. So if Alabama goes in and says, we're going to make Prabula throw it, and we're going to not allow Hardy to beat us by himself, Alabama has a pretty good chance in this game. They're given 3 points to Missouri because they're the home team. So when you give them 3 points, it becomes a +3. If you take the 3-point home edge away, it's really Alabama -6 instead of -3. Eli Drinkwitz, he cracks under pressure. We've seen it time and time again. He panics. Everything gets chaotic, and he's found a way to win lots of games. Obviously, they had a super impressive win in the bowl game last year or 2 years ago against Ohio State. But still, those big games, regular season, that mean a lot. It's not the end of your season if you lose, but it means a ton if you win. He cracks. You can just see it in his face. Alabama doesn't do that. It goes back to the swagger that they have. They're not going to crumble under the pressure. They're going to be cool, calm, and collected. They're going to play their game. They're going to stick to their game plan. They're going to make adjustments. And they have a great staff. And so I don't see any reason why Alabama has any trouble here. I think it could be close early. I think down the stretch, Alabama kind of figures things out. Their plan to force Missouri to do certain things should work out. And I like Alabama -3 on the road. I don't think, because that number is so small, it makes me feel even better. If it was bigger, it'd be different in either way. If it was more so in Missouri's favor, I would get a little worried that Vegas knew something that I didn't. If it was more so in Bama's favor, I would say, well, you really can't count Missouri out. I'm not counting Missouri out. I'm just saying that the skills that they have, I think, are too manageable for Alabama. And I think the skills that Alabama has, Missouri won't have an answer for. Especially when you look at the numbers, as far as pressuring the quarterback. So I'll take Alabama here, -3 points on the road. The illustrious, again, home record. They have a great home record. They're like a lot of wins to very little losses at home. I think it's actually something really crazy, like one loss at home in the last some odd years or something. They're like in the top 3 in that category. But if Alabama can go to Georgia and snap a 33-game home win streak against Georgia, then they can go to Missouri during the day, by the way, not even a day game. This is a morning game. You got to get up out of bed early, and you got to get going early. And so in that case, I'm going to take the team that has less stress. I think Alabama has had their back against the wall already with the Florida State loss. They're probably still pretty embarrassed about that. I think Missouri is feeling really good about themselves being undefeated, and they see this as the chance, but I would be shocked if they weren't a little nervous. So I think the nervousness that they're going to feel, Alabama's not going to quite have because they've been battle tested already. So yeah, let's go Bama here, -3. Next up, we will move into the late morning, the random, ever so rare late morning, 11:45 start for Washington State at Ole Miss. Ole Miss -32.5. Let's save some time here. Ole Miss -32.5. Thank you. Moving on to the afternoon. Indiana at Oregon. Oregon -7.5. Move that one sheet down, one sheet to go. Indiana is a 22 on the SRS to Oregon's 13. Indiana has a 3 on the strength of schedule. Oregon has a -6. Oregon is -7.5 in this game. Indiana has played Illinois and Iowa. Those are their 2 significant games. Illinois, like I've already said, I think they're a great team. I think they're good for the Big Ten. I think they're not a pushover. I think it's tough to beat them anytime. And Iowa, they went on the road to Iowa, and although they didn't blow them out like they blew out Illinois, but they kept it pretty close. It was a 5-point game at Iowa on the road. Now we know Iowa's a not very good team, but one thing Iowa does is they control the game whether they win or lose because they're going to keep it on the ground. At home, it's a tough place to play. So the 5-point win against Iowa, while it makes some people afraid to take them against Big Bad Oregon, I find that it gives me confidence because of one thing, and it is that they are finding ways to win. Finding ways to win, keeping it close. That's all they need to do in this game is keep it close. This is a 2-possession spread. What has Oregon done to believe that they can go and beat Big Bad Indiana by 2 possessions? What, beat Penn State? That wasn't what it turned out to be. It took overtime for them to beat Penn State, and then Penn State turns around and loses to the worst Power 4 team in the country. And UCLA might turn out to be, a Cinderella story. I'm not saying it as far as wins, but I mean, everybody loves the coach. What they did last week was really impressive, regardless of what state Penn State's program is in. But I think right now Indiana has the battle-testedness. Oregon's game so far, I mean, they've played virtually nobody outside of Penn State. They played Oklahoma State, Oregon State, and I can't remember the third game that was like Northwestern. Northwestern, Oregon State, and Oklahoma State. Are those three games anything compared to what they're going to see at Indiana? Probably not. So Indiana having a little bit more experience. The best team they've played so far is by far Illinois, and we all know how that game went. Now, they do have to go on the road, and I'm giving Oregon credit for being the home team here. But what I can see happening right now is Oregon winning by a field goal or Oregon winning by a touchdown and not covering this game. Because even if they win by a touchdown, it's not covering this game. At 7.5, it's 2 possessions. You got to find a way to win by 2 possessions. I think Oregon is really high right now. Obviously, I have them in the top 3. I said that on Tuesday. And so I think they're one of the best teams in the country. However, the only reason Indiana was like 8th in my top 10 was because I hate Indiana. I don't like Kurt Cignetti, but give credit where it's due. I think their time to show people that they're real is in this game. Oregon hasn't quite had a test yet like they're going to have this weekend. This is an afternoon game. They don't get the benefit of it being night in Eugene. Both of these teams have lost against the spread this year, so it's not like either of them are really coming in like they're just covering every spread and they're winning every game. This is a huge game, an absolutely huge game for the conference. It's a huge game for the college football playoff. I think either team is going to be fine after they lose. It's not going to kill their schedule. It's not going to kill their season. So I think Indiana comes in this a little bit more prepared for what they're going to see over Oregon. And if Oregon finds a way to cover, then it just validates them in my ranking, being as high up as they are. So I'm not really all that worried about it. But I think 7.5 is just too much. This is just the typical, I can see this game just being back and forth, being a dogfight between 2 really good Big Ten teams. So I'm going to take this is also going back to, I'm done picking teams that I want to cover, and I'm starting to pick the teams that I think genuinely have the best chance to cover. Now, it's not that I haven't done that before, but I kind of convinced myself, well, I really like this team. I like what I see, and I like the numbers that they're showing, and it just doesn't get done. And so I'm going to start going with teams that get it done, and Indiana gets it done. So Indiana plus 7.5 here in this spot. They score tons of points, and they're 3rd in the country in points allowed. Indiana gives up 9 points per game, going up against a new quarterback in Dante Moore. So a couple things go wrong for him. Pressure gets to him. Then you got Mendoza on the other side, who's a Heisman favorite. Heisman favorites don't crack under pressure. They just don't. True Heisman favorites just don't crack under pressure. Now, he may not be the favorite, but there's really no true favorite right now because everybody has their own poll. But anybody who is as high up as Mendoza is just simply isn't going to crack under the pressure, especially when you have the experience that he does. Dante Moore on the other side, although he's also a Heisman favorite, he's young, he's new. So I just would rather take the team to keep it close in this game rather than take the team that has to do a whole lot to actually cover. So Indiana plus 7.5 here. Oklahoma, Texas. Oh boy. Water. This is going to be hard to talk about because I'm going to say something. I'm going to say it early. I'm going to get it out of the way. Texas is going to win the game. I said it there. I said it. It's over. Swallow it. Get it over with. Texas is going to win the game. I'm going to go ahead and say the numbers even though they don't help my case any. Texas is minus 1.5. There are 7 on the SRS to Oklahoma's 19 on the SRS. Texas has a minus 2 strength of schedule, but Oklahoma only has a 1 on the strength of schedule. Here's what I'm looking at, okay? I'm going to validate my crazy. Texas is only giving up 12 points per game. If they go out and give up 12 points in this game against Oklahoma, they're going to find a way to win. because as bad as Texas has looked, they still score points. Let's look at Texas from a broad perspective. They lost to arguably the best team in the country in Ohio State on the road in week 1. In the last show of game day for Lee Corso, he picked Ohio State on the field. It was like they broke decibel records of how loud it was, and it was a 7-14 game. Ohio State goes and they mollywopped Washington, and they're beating the crap out of basically everybody else that they've played, even the better teams that they've played. But they beat Texas by 7-14. That's the same Texas team that everybody's trashing right now. And I understand they just lost to Florida, but I said last week, and I still stand by it, if Florida has nothing, they have good defense. That's the only thing that they have to hang their hat on is good defense. And they went in there, and it didn't go their way. They had an effort at the very end to kind of fight back in a way. I think there was some chances there. If any Florida fan who's watched them enough, like my wife's side of the family who are diehard Florida fans, would have told you, we were never comfortable in that game until like the last 4 minutes. And up until the last 4 minutes, Texas clawed their way back in the game. And so what I'm looking at here is Texas having a average to decent to good defensive performance. And let's not forget to mention that this is at the Cotton Bowl. So it's at a neutral site. It's a huge game. The Cotton Bowl game gives us bangers every year, no matter what. Just like the Egg Bowl does, just like Ohio State versus Michigan does. It doesn't matter where these two teams are. It's going to be a good game. I know that Oklahoma has the better resume. They have the better record. But when you look at the talent, Texas has the talent to keep up with Oklahoma. Quite frankly, they probably have better talent than what Oklahoma has. Now, at this point, you're probably like, Scott, you haven't talked about the one most important factor in this game. Let's talk about it now. John Mateer, as of tonight, Thursday night, he's probable to play in the game. Let's not forget why he was even out to begin with. He broke a bone in his throwing hand that required surgery, and he's out for like 2 weeks. And here's one thing that I haven't heard from anybody at Oklahoma. He's 100%. I haven't heard that. Have you heard that? Have you heard anybody say that John Mateer is coming back? And not only is he coming back, he's 100%. Not me. And I listen to a lot of people talk about this game. So let's assume that they are putting him in a little bit earlier than they maybe wanted to, because you can't look past Texas at the Cotton Bowl. So they're like, man, you're good enough to go in, and you may not be 100%, but we think you can do it. And of course, he's a competitor. He's going to say, yeah, put me in. So what happens if he comes in and he's just not quite ready yet and they have to go to the backup? Well, the backup played against Check's Notes, Kennesaw State. That was his start that he got while John Mateer was gone. So now if he has to come back into the game, now he has to go against Texas. And Texas is no schmuck on defense. Texas is no schmuck on the defensive line. And so I think one of two things is going to happen here. You're going to have John Mateer come back, and he's not going to be 100%, or you're going to face the backup. I don't see any way that John Mateer actually just like comes in and lights this game up. There's one way that might happen, and that they just let him run the ball. They don't really let him throw the ball all that much because of his hand. They're just like, dude, we're just going to run the ball. Just hold on to it. You ain't got to throw. Just hold on to it. And if Oklahoma decides to do that, which they very well might, to try to protect Mateer, what does running the ball do? It bleeds the clock, and it slows the game down. If you slow the game down and you bleed the clock, you're giving Texas more chances to stay in the game, because they can not score in a possession, and then you knock off 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes off the clock, and then you score. Well, now you're only up one possession, and we've gone through like a whole quarter at this point. So I think in that, knowing that, because what's one thing that Florida did against Texas that ultimately won them the game? They stretched the field. They went vertical. They went explosive. I don't see Oklahoma being explosive in this game time after time after time. They might have a couple explosive plays. They might throw the ball. But I don't anticipate seeing them throw the ball like we really expect to see just because John Mateer's back. Oh, well, John Mateer's back, so they're just going to go back to where they were. No, he's coming back off of an injury to his throwing hand. They're going to run the ball more. It's not what beat Texas last week in Florida. It's not what beat. It's not how how did they beat Michigan? They beat Michigan by running the ball. Every time I looked up watching that game, John Mateer's running the ball. And what happened in that game was they didn't blow out Michigan. So I anticipate a slow defensive game, explosive play here and there. It's going to make it seem like it's not a slow running ball game, but that's what it's going to be. You got Arch Manning on the other side. While he hasn't had the best year, he hasn't been terrible. He had one bad game against Ohio State. And then against his nobody school games, people thought there was something wrong with him. But ultimately, he's not doing all that bad. Really, the worst part about Arch Manning's game is he's not limiting pressure and he's not limiting bad plays. He's letting pressure get to him, and he's panicking and he's making things turn into chaos. I told myself it was Oklahoma all week, and I won't lie. I took some advice from Josh Pate. Josh Pate said one thing. From the very beginning of this week, he said Texas is going to win this game. Now, I'm not making that pick because he made the pick. It has a lot to do with why I make this pick. But there's one thing that he said that resonated with me, and that was number one. I have predicted Texas to a T this year. And number two, I've predicted Oklahoma to a T this year. This is Josh Pate, not me. I've predicted Oklahoma to a T. I've predicted Texas to a T. If anybody knows these teams as well as I do, let them know. Let me know who they are, because he believes he can predict these teams as well as anybody. So if he has Texas winning this game, why would I not believe him? The information is there. Again, you want Oklahoma to win the game because I think everybody enjoys watching Texas spiral. But when you look at their toughest opponent so far, 7-14 on the road against the best team in the country in a hostile environment, and now they're going to go into an environment where they're probably going to be 50-50 or maybe even favored in the stands. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. Oklahoma's not going to get the benefit of being at home. Texas isn't going to get the benefit of being at home. I find a back and forth game here. It's going to be kept on the ground on Oklahoma's side. Texas is going to do what they do well, which is mix it up. Steve Sarkisian is not a bad coach. He's going to find ways to win this game, and I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to, again, go against the team that I want to win and pick the team that I think has the best chance to cover, and that's going to be Texas in this game. And last thing I'll say on this, I tried to convince myself all week of Oklahoma. You guys are all probably listening to me like, why in the world? How in the world do you think this Texas team is going to win this game? Let me refer you to one last thing. Vegas, who makes the lines, who so often, time and time again, gets these numbers correct. How do they do it? We don't know. We'll probably never know. But they have a way to do it. They do it very well. They dumbfound us week after week after week on certain games where we're like, how in the world is the number where it's at? I don't know. But they do it. And they have Texas favored -1.5. And that was with John Mateer playing. That line has not moved. We actually had something here. Here's another thing I just remembered. FanDuel, who's one of the leading sports books in the game, told Josh Pate, if John Mateer wasn't playing, this would be 5.5 Texas. But because he is playing, it's still 1.5 Texas. And that was from earlier this week, before the news of him even probably playing even came out. And so they anticipated, hey, if he comes back, we still have Texas -1.5. That's got to mean something. I'm not going to let him fool me again. Texas -1.5. Oof, it's over. There. Move on. I hated even talking about that. I'm either going to look like a genius or an idiot come Saturday afternoon. Now let's get into the quicker part of the show where we get into these games that don't have quite as much to talk about or quite as much on the line, but still great games. Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is favored minus 14.5. Let's save some time on this one. It's going to be Georgia Tech minus 14.5. They are so much better of a team than Virginia Tech is. Look past the Wake Forest game. Wake Forest has a great defense. Virginia Tech is terrible. They haven't done quite anything right this year. They don't have their head coach. They have an interim going in there. Georgia Tech is looking to prove something after the Wake Forest game, I think. They're at home. Virginia Tech has covered less than one time this year. Georgia Tech is right around 500 on the number against the spread. So I find that Georgia Tech is going to be able to bounce back in this ramp-up game as they get into the meat and potatoes of the SEC schedule that they have. So Georgia Tech minus 14.5 here. I think this is a rout. Next up, Arkansas at Tennessee. Tennessee favored minus 12.5. Arkansas also not covered more than one time this season. Tennessee has been playing lights out, frankly, minus the Georgia game. They were a field goal away from being undefeated and beating Georgia. They're favored minus 12.5 in this game. I don't know that Arkansas has anything going for them. I had an extensive conversation with somebody who is a Tennessee fan and looks at all this stuff just as much as I do. Quite frankly, they have the knowledge and the information to have their own podcast if they wanted to, but they don't. And him and I had a very extensive conversation on this game. And there was a couple things that we talked about that I think have some meaning. Number one, Arkansas beat Tennessee last year. Josh Heupel wants this game. Tennessee wants this game. They want to get revenge on that really bad. Number two. What was number two? I forgot. I didn't write it down. It was an extensive conversation, as I said. Yes, here it was. Sam Pittman's gone. Petrino's taken over. So with him taking over, there's one thing that I don't expect to change, and that's the offense, because he was already calling the offense. So just because he's elevated into the head coaching job now doesn't mean that anything's going to change on the offense, because he's still going to do it his way. So what do I expect to change? That's the defensive side of the ball for Arkansas. They already had a poor defense, and then they went and fired the defensive coaches after Sam Pittman got fired. So now, if the defense is the same, then it's bad. If the defense has changed, well, how could it have possibly changed for the better? Like what we have seen, how could it possibly get any better after you lose all the coaches that have coached you up all year, and now you're switching to not only new coaches, but new play calling, and maybe these new coaches are like, hey, we're going to do it our way, the way we've wanted to do it. Well, what way is that? If it wasn't the best way before, why is it the best way now? So I see that if Arkansas is going to change anything in this game because of Sam Pittman being gone, I don't know that it's going to be for the better. I think they're going to change things to try something to see what works. But unfortunately, Tennessee's not necessarily the team that you want to do that against. Tennessee has been very, very good offensively. So if nothing else happens in this game that we predict, Tennessee will score a lot of points. So you have to think, for Arkansas to cover in this game and keep this game close, they've got to do what? They've got to keep up with them. You got to go in a shootout. Can Arkansas go in a shootout against Tennessee in this game? I don't think so. They went into a shootout against Ole Miss because Ole Miss at that time was playing about the worst defense they've played all year. And that was still pretty early on. I think there was still some confidence there in Arkansas's program. All that confidence has left the building after losing to Notre Dame in embarrassing fashion, and then even more so against Memphis. So I don't know what they have to play for at this point. I think they might just be wanting to get through the year, maybe get into their coaching search, get into finding a new staff, get into finding new players that are going to point the program in the direction they want to go. But right now is not it, because it's not going to turn around in 1 week, and especially not against one of the better teams in the SEC. So again, what do we know is going to happen? Tennessee's going to score points. What do we not know is going to happen? Really what Arkansas is going to do, like, at all other than the offense. So I think Tennessee is going to find a way to win this game and win big. Something else that we talked about in this very extensive conversation. Tennessee is undefeated against the spread in the first quarter. So what does that tell you? Well, number one, it tells you they get out to a quick start. They don't have any problems getting going. They score early, they score fast, and they get ahead fast. If they get ahead fast in this game, Arkansas doesn't have a hope. They don't have a chance. if Tennessee finds a way to get out ahead quickly and cover the first quarter line, which is right now at 4.5, so you're telling me they are more than a field goal lead by the time the first quarter is over, Arkansas has zero chance because Arkansas doesn't have the type of program right now. They don't have the confidence, they don't have the makeup, and they don't have the experience to find a way to come back in a game. So given that Tennessee constantly every week, week in, week out, has covered the first quarter spread by at least like 10 points, I think it was. They get out ahead early. They get out ahead quick. There's nothing Arkansas can do. Their only hope to cover in this game is to start out early themselves, maybe stop Tennessee early, which probably won't happen because the defense is their worst side of the ball. So I will take Tennessee minus 12.5 and Tennessee first quarter minus 4.5. That will finish up the afternoon. Let's roll through this night slate and call it a night. It is currently 12:29. And I got work in the morning, so let's get out of here. Florida at A&M. A&M minus 7.5. A&M coming off a huge win against Mississippi State. Florida coming off of a huge win against Texas. I see Florida coming in at a letdown spot here in this game. They had a lot of hype after the Texas win last week. Billy Napier saving his job once again. Texas A&M, on the other hand, had Mississippi State coming in, who at the time only blemish was losing in overtime to the same Tennessee team that we just hyped up for 5 minutes. So I think ultimately they were what I thought was a good competition going into that game, and A&M quickly proved me wrong by somewhat blowing out Mississippi State at home. Not only are they at home for this game against Florida, but it is a night game again. So that's 2 consecutive night games where they have every bit of momentum. I think Florida's going to be in a letdown spot here where you're not totally over the Texas win. Now you're like, oh crap, now we got to move on to Texas A&M. They're playing really well. 7.5 is 2 possessions. It's a big number. I'm not super comfortable with that. But I've seen that they've proven that they can cover numbers like that because they did it against Mississippi State. And they score a lot of points. Their defense at home especially is really good. Florida, I think, just doesn't have the pieces all together yet. I think they kind of expended that opportunity against Texas last week where they kind of put everything together. I don't know that they can do it 2 weeks in a row simply because of their makeup and where their program is at right now. And it's tough to win in Aggie Land at night against the 12th man. So for that alone, we're going to take A&M minus 7.5. Kansas at Texas Tech. Texas Tech minus 14. You guys know I love Texas Tech. The worst thing that I've seen this week is that Josh Pate has Kansas in this game on his Ramen Noodle Express, which are his best bets. So it hurt my heart to see that, especially given that Texas Tech is undefeated against the spread, and they are undefeated against the spread by like 40 points. I think they have like double covered every single game that they've played this year. So like every time they have the number to cover, they cover it, and then they cover it again in every game so far. So they are absolutely blowing out teams that they're playing, and they've played really good teams like Utah. They went into Utah on the road and won that game, and then they went up against an undefeated Houston team last week and absolutely dominated them on the road. And so now they finally get to be at home. They have everything rolling. Everything's going for them. Kansas is not the Kansas that we expected them to be. They lost a huge game to Missouri when they were way out ahead. They let Missouri come back into the game. And I give Josh Pate a lot of credit. I tend to lean his direction most every time because of the knowledge that he has, the experience that he has, and he's one of the best in the business. But he's also not perfect. And I think this is one of the games where he might end up being on the wrong side of things. I don't have a problem with Kansas plus 14, but I believe too much in Texas Tech minus 14. And they are a rare case with what I've said already that I'm leaning away from teams that I want to cover and win and leaning into teams that I think have the ability to cover and win. And I think Texas Tech has proven time and time again that they can do what they're expected to do. I don't see any reason why that stops right here because they're not in a letdown spot. They just came off of a Houston win. Why would you be in a letdown spot after beating Houston? Now you're on to Kansas. If you're Texas Tech, it's just the next game. It's not the next biggest game. It's just the next game. So I just don't think this is the game that they maybe squander a little bit. There's other teams that they'll play that are a little bit better than Kansas that I think will be the opportunity for them eventually to just kind of squander away a game, because it's a long season, 12 games, things happen. I just don't think it's going to be this game. So I'll take Texas Tech minus 14 to stay undefeated on the season outright and undefeated against the spread. And it might be right at 14. And if it is, it doesn't really matter. 14 is 14 is 14. So, Raiders, finger pistols, new finger pistols. If you guys didn't see that, that was a total downgrade. The total downgrade. They are totally messing up. They're pulling a Cracker Barrel. They're changing their logo in the worst way possible. I think they're just going to get bullied online until they fix it. But that has nothing to do with footballs being thrown in the air. So I'm going to take Texas Tech minus 14 here. Georgia at Auburn. Auburn, as I said before, gives up the most sacks in Power 4. So they have a terrible offensive line. Georgia obviously has a huge presence defensively. They have a huge presence in general. And what I look at in this game, outside of the fact that Jackson Arnold's going to be under pressure all night, number two is that we've said before, we've said again, they have a problem being explosive and being vertical. And you don't want to try to beat Georgia in the trenches just because you're not going to do it. Alabama did it because Alabama is one of the few teams that can do it. But that game was close. This game doesn't need to be close. It can be. It doesn't need to be. So if you're going to go in this game hoping to win in the trenches, you're not going to do it. And if you're going to rely on your offensive line to give Jackson Arnold time to throw the ball and do his thing, they're not going to do that either, because they've proven they can't do it, and they're going up against their best test of the year so far. And one thing, too, in this game, you're talking about Kirby Smart versus Hugh Freeze. Georgia's in the same position Alabama's in, where their back's already up against the wall. They don't have room to fall anymore. They've already lost one game that they probably should have won, just like Alabama lost to Florida State where they should have won. So Georgia's up against the wall. Auburn is fighting tooth and nail. Ultimately, I think when you have both of those coaches and both of those coaching staffs in need to win, must win territory, I'm going to lean Kirby Smart and his staff. There's no question about it. Line play is going to be the difference in this game. Gunnar Stockton is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the SEC because he just gets it done. It's not pretty. It's not. Nobody really talks about it. Everybody's talking about them as a whole in Georgia. Nobody's really talking about any individual players. So I'm going to take the team that is just the smart play here. It's going to be Georgia minus 3.5 on the road at Auburn. And that will end our card for week 7. Let me get this pop-up out of here. 1 hour and 6 minutes. We rambled a little bit there, but we had a lot of games. That's the most games we've gone through in one show. So that's not too bad. It'll edit down a little bit too. Yeah, it was a lot of games, so it took a lot of time to get the information that I did. Some of these games I just breezed over because I just simply didn't have the time to put in, especially when you had games starting on Thursday. We really had like 3 days to get information together on 14 different games. And quite simply, that's not really feasible for me having a full-time job. Where I'm trying to, do this as a hobby. So, after hours away from work. So it's a lot, man. So some of these games we had to go off the field, take some of the bare minimum kind of surface level statistics that we have in front of us and do it. But again, this week I took a little bit of a different approach because the last 2 weeks haven't been all that well. We were like 3-6 2 weeks ago and then 4-4 last week. And then all the other weeks leading up before that, we were well above 500. So I'm trying to get back to that by kind of going back to the roots and picking games that we believe are more sensible and not necessarily what we want to happen. So that's an episode. That's 14 games picked. We're already 1-0. That's what you got to remember. We're already 1-0. And we have another game on Friday night that we hope goes our way to put us 2-0. And if we can go into Saturday, a 12-game card on Saturday, 2-0, we've got the world in front of us and we're going to be feeling good. And that's what I expect. So that's an episode. Thank you for all the support, all the people who are watching day in and day out both episodes every week. I have so many people that are supporting me and watching both episodes every week. So I hope that continues and hopefully grows. We're going to try to make this better every single time. So again, just to really appreciate everybody. So I will call it there. This has been Week 7 card, 14 picks. We will see you on Tuesday with a recap, hopefully a good recap. But with that, we will finally come to a close. See you guys on Tuesday. Hotty toddy.